What's going on, guys? Alpha the Wizard back at it with another video. Today we are continuing the meta history of Yu-Gi-Oh! And now I have something very special for you. We are officially on September 2008 TeleDAD format. Now, there's a couple different evolutions of TeleDAD. This was a tier 0 format from September 2008 all the way till March 1st of 2009. So that's quite a few months to be tier 0. However, there were a few different things that altered this deck's evolution. So when it first came out, we were still missing some synchros that would eventually be released, like Magical Android and Black Rose Dragon. However, when those cards were released, it added a whole new element to TeleDAD because now we had Black Rose Dragon and Magical Android, which is a level 5 synchro, also being the first level 5 synchro in Yu-Gi-Oh! History. And then that second evolution also brought about a few different changes in the next months after, such as Plague Spreader Zombie and Gorz the Emissary of Darkness, which changed the whole dynamic of TeleDAD. The deck wasn't really built too much differently from each other. However, the incorporation of Plague Spreader allowed for way more synchro plays, and Gorz allowed for protection when the opponent commits all their cards and thinks they're going for game, and then you just have Gorz for protection. It might end up killing them next turn. So yes, while this did change the dynamic of TeleDAD, and then later on there was the iteration of Royal Oppression in TeleDAD decks. However, the one that we are going to be covering today is the first iteration from September of 2008 before Black Rose and Magical Android. So without further ado, let's just go ahead and hop right in. To start things off, it wouldn't be TeleDAD if we didn't have Dark Arm Dragon. Now this was the card that everybody feared. Usually when this card would hit the field, it was usually game. So, with this being said, this card did get put to 2 by the ban list. However, this was fine. You didn't necessarily need 3 of these anyway, because the deck was so consistent at spitting out synchros that Dark Arm Dragon was just a go for game card. So yes, next on the list, we have Caius, the Shadow Monarch. Caius was really good in this deck because Destiny Hero Malicious was at 3, and it was so easy to just summon Caius, and this deck was tier 0, quite frankly, so every other deck in the format, for the most part, was going to be a mirror match. So Caius just gets good value because chances are they're going to have a dark. And then we have Stratos. Now, Stratos was a really good card for many years to come. And Stratos, in this tech in particular, Malicious went to 3, and we had 3 Destiny draw. So you can imagine where this is going. This deck is very similar to Dark Arm Return that got the E-band of Dimension Fusion and Return to 1 back in May. However, now it's September and Malicious is at 3, Destiny Draw is still at 3, and we still have all the powerful engine that we can abuse with this. So yeah, we got Stratos next. And then, speaking of Destiny Hero Malicious, we have to play none other than 3 copies of this card. Malicious is one of the most broken cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! History, for the sole reason you could just banish it from your graveyard to special summon another one, and it added a whole new element to the deck with the release of Emergency Teleport. And then next on the list, we have Destiny Hero Diamond Dude. Now, Diamond Dude wasn't really like a centerpiece of the deck. He was more so just another Destiny Hero target. Back in history, there wasn't that many Destiny heroes, so finding good targets for them, they were far and few between. So Diamond Dude just served good utility, if anything, but our main card was to get Malicious. And then we do have Doomlord. Now, I will say, at the beginning of the format, back in September of 2008, a lot of people were opting to play Fearmonger first, But it wasn't until a few months into the format that everybody realized that Doomlord was just better, because you could out a whole Stardust Dragon for like the second standby phase after activation. So that's kind of insane. But then, aside from the Destiny Hero engine, we do play a single copy of Breaker the Magical Warrior. Breaker was still at 1, and for good reason. Although this card wasn't like a power card, this card would get better over the evolution of TeleDAD, especially once people started incorporating Royal Oppression. But this also was just generically good, because if they had a Solemn Judgment, which most TeleDAD decks maxed out on Solemn Judgment, Breaker, they're not going to Solemn Judgment that. So yeah, Breaker was just a really fair card back in TeleDAD. And then we do have Dark Grepher. Dark Grepher was just a one of. Armageddon Knight wasn't necessary. Since we play 3 Mali, it just makes sense to have another reinforcement to the army target, because we're mainly just trying to get Stratos. However, Grepher has good utility. Now, once this deck evolves and incorporates Plague Spreader Zombie, this gets even crazier, because then you could just dump Plague Spreader. But then, in this version, we also play a singular copy of Mystic Tomato, and for good reason, because we have so many good targets for Mystic Tomato. So yeah, we have like the Doomlord, we could even get Mali, but in addition to our Mystic Tomato targets, we do play a Snipe Hunter and a Sangan. Because Snipe Hunter is really good for maybe discarding a Mali, or, you know, simply just outing a Stardust Dragon. Now, you might wonder, how can this out Stardust Dragon? Well, it selects a card on the field and you roll a 6-sided die. If it's not 1 or 7, destroy the selected card. This card is not guaranteed, so Stardust Dragon cannot negate Snipe Hunter. But yeah, and then there's Sangan. Sangan just searches, you know, for whatever you might need. Good utility in the deck, and yeah. But then, last but not least, last monster we have to incorporate is 3 Kribons. Because with the release of Synchros, also came the release of Emergency Teleport. And this is a level 2 tuner. So that means if you are able to get a Destiny Hero Malicious in the graveyard, you could banish it to summon another Malicious, and then you can activate Emergency Teleport for Kribons, which gets you to a level 8 Synchro. Or if you have like a Dark Grepher or a Breaker on the field, you could use Kribons and one of those for a Goyo Guardian. But yeah, so that's really it for all the monsters in this particular build. There was slight changes between TeleDAD builds, however, they weren't very different. And then we do have 3 Allure of Darkness. This is a dark deck, and it's very consistent because of cards like Allure. But in addition to Allure of Darkness, adding even more to the consistency of this deck, we have 3 Destiny Draw. Destiny Draw was so good in this deck, and we had to play the Doomlord and the Diamond Dude just because we max out on Destiny Draw, which is okay because we're adding cards that are relatively not that strong, but for a draw 2, 3 of in our deck. So I would say the trade-off is pretty worth it. And then, of course, you gotta max out on Emergency Teleport. It just summons a level 2 or 3 or lower Psychic from your deck. So, yeah, you can imagine where that goes. And then, of course, consistency. We need 2 reinforcements of the army. Premature Burial got banned. However, Monster Reborn was still legal. Doesn't make sense, but hey, I don't make the rules. And then we have 1 Mystical Space Typhoon, just a good general utility card to trade with their Judgment or even Oppression. And then we have Heavy Storm, just, you know, generically good staple. And 1 copy of Brain Control. This got way better with the incorporation of tuners being in Yu-Gi-Oh! Which, this was the first set when Kribons came out that tuners first came out. And then for the trap lineup, the good thing about TeleDAD is they played quite a bit of power traps, like Solemn Judgment. Judgment is just really good in combination with the Stardust Dragon, kind of broken. And then in addition to that, we have 2 Phoenix Wing Wind Blasts. This is really good for getting a Mali out of your hand if you need to, and just spinning back a Synchro. A single copy of Terrenal Tribute. one copy of Crush Card Virus, because it wouldn't be a Dark Arm Dragon deck without this. And then we have one Trap Dust Shoot. Some decks played Mirror Force, some didn't. Don't really have to. I don't think you really need it. Judgment is enough. Now that's it for the main deck. For the extra deck, now just keep in mind, we don't have very many synchros yet at this point because this is the first release of them. So we have 3 Stardust Dragon, which just came out in this new set. And then we have Colossal Fighter. Now, the extra deck is not going to be full, so I would just recommend maxing out 3 of all these. And then we got Thought Ruler Archfiend, and like I said, I would just play 3 of them. And then we also have Red Dragon Archfiend. Mind you, Thought Ruler is really good against Gladiator Beast. And then this just comes up in very niche moments. But then we also have 3 Goyo Guardian. We don't actually have a level 5 synchro yet, and the only level 6 we have is Goyo, and it's at 3, so we're going to max out on it. And then we do play a single copy of Gladiator Beast Gyzaris, because we do play Brain Control and Monster Reborn. So, yeah, this is, pretty staple in the extra deck, especially considering you already have so much space, you might as well just play it. But yeah, that does it for the TeleDAD episode. Now, let me know what you thought about this, because Dark Arm Return, TeleDAD is one of the most prominent decks of all time. And to be quite honest, I think it's actually a lot of fun. Let me know down in the comments if you think this format is fun, because I personally remember it as being one of my favorites. But yeah, that does it for this video. Thank you all for watching. This is Alpha the Wizard signing off.